It all started with Grandma. Death is coming for us because we were never supposed to exist.
Only by embracing death will it pass you by.
If you have been joining me for the week of Final Destination reviews, we have reached the end and the brand new Final Destination film, the 6th installment, Final Destination Bloodlines. And I will tell you this. If you are a fan of Final Destination, if you made it to the 6th movie in the series, and you're still on board with the premise, and you're still on board with the types of scenarios these movies are famous for, and this is your jam, this is your shit, this is your kind of film, I'm going to tell you that Final Destination Bloodlines understands the assignment and delivers. I'll tell you guys, I was a little bit hesitant before I saw this movie. One of the directors directed Leprechaun Origins, which was terrible, and I just kind of had that in my mind. And then also, there hasn't been a Final Destination movie in so long, with Final Destination 5 seeming to bring everything full circle and wrap up the entire Final Destination story. Although they didn't, because there are some loose ends that are talked about in this movie. I, of course, went in with an open mind because I wanted to see what this movie was capable of, and I think that the premise of this movie is actually really clever, creative, ties more things in together than you would think, and the kill sequences are fantastic, done in the way that you want to see them, with a constant buildup of suspense. But at the same time, this movie is definitely catered for Final Destination fans. And what I mean by that is that there are plenty of sequences in this movie of would-be potential deaths and suspense that is built, where you see a piece of broken glass go from here to there, and you see the rake under the trampoline, and you see the lawnmower, and you see a guy with a leaf blower, and you see some kids kicking a ball around, you see a garbage truck coming, all of these different things that it focuses on, and even characters in the movie make awareness to this from time to time of things to be looking out for. And Final Destination is one of those series that really makes you kind of like cautiously double check everything, because people do legitimately die in all these weird freak accidents all the time. And it's just like the butterfly effect of, you could just toss a penny one day and then that penny could lead to an ultimate chaotic disaster that kills hundreds of people. You have no idea. And so coming out of this movie, it definitely worked effectively, because I was kind of like sometimes my shoelaces come untied and I got on the escalator and I was like looking down just to be sure. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about this movie a little bit just in general, and then I'm going to go into more spoilery stuff, because with the other Final Destination movies that I reviewed this week, they've been out for years and years, so I just spoiled them throughout the entire review. But here, I'm assuming some people will watch this that don't want to know anything, so all I'm really going to tell you is like the general setup, the general premise, which I do believe was in the trailers, but I'm not going to give away any specific death scenes or the order of the kills or anything that happens beyond that. But I'll just basically give you like the general premise to be able to talk about the movie. So in this movie, we have a bit of a creative twist with the opening kill scene. I think it was done very, very well. It takes place in this tower, and I do believe all of this is in the trailers, and I think that this tower is even the poster of the movie, so this is not a spoiler. But yeah, this giant tower has an event that characters go to, and it begins to collapse because of a whole variety of reasons, killing a bunch of people. But of course, somebody has the premonition of what's going to happen and is able to stop it. But the creative twist in this movie is that this happened all the way back in the 1960s, and this movie takes place in present day. Meaning this movie is actually about the grandchildren of someone that survived this event that was never meant to survive. And you may wonder, why has it taken so long for death to catch up to them? Well, it just simply has to do with the amount of numbers of people. This is the biggest event that we've seen thus far. Like I said, hundreds of people were supposed to be in this collapse. And so for death to take its time to get to each individual person, well, by the time it does, you know, some people have been able to live longer lives. Some people have been able to have children, and some have even been able to have grandchildren. And so now we are dealing with the concept of the bloodline that is never meant to exist. And so this movie focuses on the grandchildren of the original person that had the vision, and the fact that their number is almost up. Death is about to catch up with them. Now, besides that, I don't want to really give anything away in terms of the story details. I'll save that for when I get into spoilers. But here's what I will say is that this movie understands exactly what it is. This is not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think any of the Final Destination movies are masterpieces. What they need to be is suspenseful and fun. And I think this movie is definitely that. There are so many scenes where it leads you into misdirection after misdirection, and they do a very good job focusing on particular things, and they know that you as the audience are going to be focusing on the things that'll happen. I think the first trailer for this movie showed the scene in the tattoo parlor where a guy gets his piercing caught in this chain that's wrapping up in the ceiling fan. So like that's something there, but it's just ideas like that. There's the event of the broken shard of glass that ends up in somebody's cup, and is somebody going to drink it? Just suspense on top of suspense on top of suspense. But they also do go into the methods of, the prevention of this or prolonging this, or the things that have been talked about in previous movies. And I like that even though there's not a direct connection to the main characters of the other movies, there is sort of the thread line of everything that's been established, every rule that we've made in the past, all of those things are still in play. So even though every Final Destination movie has a different core group of characters, all the rules still apply to everybody. On top of that, I think the characters in this movie were actually pretty decent. They're not my favorite of the entire franchise, but I think they're miles better than Part 4 and Part 5. You really, sympathize with them to some degree. There are some characters that have a lot of comic relief aspects to them. There's some that they're going to die at some point. It doesn't really like overtly make any specific character be an outright asshole. So it's like, you don't really get the kind of cathartic death of like, he was a dick anyway, so who cares? Each character does have redeeming qualities, and they more or less feel like an actual functioning family with some, normal family dysfunction. Also, there is a scene with Tony Todd, rest in peace, who reprises his role as the mortician from parts 1, 2, and 5. Was really heartbreaking, actually. This scene, it plays perfectly within the movie and the storyline, and you do find things out about his character that you've never known before, but seeing Tony Todd, be that thin, and especially after I just rewatched the 5th movie, where, he has a lot more meat on his bones back then, and now seeing who he is, in the present time, right before he passed away, it was really sad to see. But at the same time, the scene that they gave him was actually pretty profound, because he is talking about life and death and all of these things, and knowing that this was Tony Todd's final role or one of his final performances, there is sort of like a poignancy to it. Now, I'd say if I had any gripes with the movie, it goes right to the CGI. I don't think the CGI was terrible. Like, I don't think it's as bad as the 4th movie, but there are several instances in this movie where I would have preferred practical effects, and I just don't know why we have to do CGI for everything. I'm not anti-CGI, but there's some times where it's like, did you need CGI for that? Like, you couldn't just make a practical effect. Like, you couldn't just... I don't know. Like, I don't understand, like, studios and where they want to put their money and their budgets and stuff like that. But I would just imagine, instead of paying a bunch of CGI animators to create something, why not give it to some practical effects guys and do the same thing and make it look better? Like, I don't know. But it is kind of like a common thing that's in all of the Final Destination movies. Like, even dating back to the original, they use CGI. So, I mean, I guess it's part of the franchise. It's par for the course. But there's a couple instances and kill scenes in this movie where I just wish they would have used practical effects. Other than that, I enjoyed this movie way more than I thought I would. And this is after rewatching all of the Final Destination movies this week. Maybe I'll reassess my favorites and give you guys a ranking video or something like that. I don't know. But I gotta say, this is pretty high up. This is actually pretty high up. I liked it a lot more than I thought. Just I have some nitpicks, but overall, I had a really good time. So besides that, I'm going to go into spoilers. I'm going to talk about specific death scenes, and I'm going to talk about the Tony Todd scene. So if you don't want spoilers, click away now. Warning you, this is the warning. Right now, no one can get mad at me. All right, spoilers. So let's talk about the Tony Todd scene first. So this movie effectively gives us the origin of Tony Todd's character and finally answers the question of who the fuck is this guy and why does he know so much about death? Well, again, spoilers now. Turns out Tony Todd was going to be in that original tower collapsing. He was a little kid at the time, and he was saved along with everyone else because of the woman that had the premonition. And he was going to be the second to last to die. So this is how he survived this long, because death has to go through hundreds of people before it reaches him. But now that it's killed the final woman, who's an old lady. We see her in modern times. You know, she reconnects with her granddaughter in this movie. And after she dies, well, that means that it would have skipped. So, you know, after this family is killed, this means Tony Todd would be last. And there is sort of like an irony and sort of like a, I don't know, like a cathartic final state. If this is the last Final Destination movie, it kind of makes sense that Tony Todd's character would be the last one, like the final person for death to catch up with. And, you know, rest in peace to him in real life. But this is how he knows, because this woman figured everything out. She was sort of like the Devon Sawa character of the 1960s, obviously met up with Tony Todd. His character told him about it and helped keep him alive this entire time too. So he knows everything because he was involved in one of these events way back when. So this gets rid of the theories of he's not death, you know, he's not like the Grim Reaper in disguise or something. He's just somebody that's been through it, or at least saved by somebody that had one of the visions. And in his final scene, he talks about appreciating life and enjoying the moments that you have, and how none of us know when death is going to come for us or in what form it's going to take. And there's something about him, the actor, saying this, you know, on screen, seeing him there alive on screen, knowing in real life he's passed away, that just, it was, I don't know, it hit, man. Like, I'm not going to say that, like, it was, the scene wasn't necessarily played as like this big emotional moment, but just knowing the behind the scenes, I felt it, you know, I felt something there. I felt it in his performance. And if this is Tony Todd's farewell, this is his last performance, what a great final scene to go out on. So yeah, rest in peace to the legend, Candyman himself, and JB. Now, the other thing I thought was great here is that all of the rules that were established in the previous movies are still in play. So he does mention if you kill somebody, that will negate the death and you can survive. But there's an addition added here that I don't think was talked about in part 5, is that you get as many remaining years as the person you killed would have had. So there's like a funny comedic moment after they learn that, where they're in the hospital and they look at a bunch of babies that were just born and they're like, no, we can't do it. We can't do it. And they also mentioned Kimberly from Final Destination 2 and how her plan actually did work, where she died. She effectively died. She flatlined and she was able to be revived. And because of that, death never circled back and got her. So her character is not in the movie, but it is confirmed that, yeah, Kimberly from part 2 is still alive. And that actually worked. So there are the two methods to getting around death. One, you kill somebody else. In turn, you get however many remaining years they would have had. Or number 2, you die and get brought back to life in some way. So those are the only two ways around it. Other than, you know, like preventing a death so you prolong, you know, the amount of time until death gets back to you. But a lot of different variety here, and I like that they played with each and every one of them. Now, there's a couple really great kill scenes in this movie. I think the best one is the MRI machine, where this gets turned up to the top level. So the whole plan is that, you know, there's these two brothers and only one of them is actually supposed to die. And so they're thinking, okay, we'll get you to die and I'll revive you and then everything will be okay. So he has this major allergy to peanut butter. So he's going to eat this peanut butter cup and basically get to a point where he can't breathe and like hits the point where I guess he dies, and they plan to revive him. It's a pretty half-cooked, half-assed plan. But given the two characters that are trying to put it together, it makes sense. But they end up in this room with an MRI that gets turned all the way up. And the one brother has piercings all over his body. And the metal, you know, the magnetism pulls each and every one of his piercings. And it's just like, it's ears, nose, tongue, nipples, and even his dick. And also the way he's getting pulled in the machine, like there's like the opening of the machine that hits his midsection, and he starts bending backwards into the machine, and he's not even meant to die. He's just in the wrong space at the wrong time. and the other brother gets it as the vending machine that they pulled the peanut butter cup out of has the loose screw that gets pulled by the MRI machine magnetism and just drills itself into his head. Incredible. There's the other long extended sequence where the father dies. And this is this party that's happening in the backyard where a piece of broken glass falls into one of the drink cups. There's also like a beer that's on the very edge of the table. They're playing with the, they're showing close-ups of the guy turning on the propane for the grill. And like all of these things are happening at once. And this is what I'm saying by the movie playing on you being a fan, because if you are a Final Destination fan, you're looking at all of these things already. So the fact that it lingers and shows you so much variety and gives you so many options of what could happen, the movie knows exactly what it's doing, and I thank it for that. There's also another great sequence where they're walking down the side of the street and the main girl character is looking and he's like, what could happen? He's like, well, this could fall from the tree and cause the guy with the leaf blower to hit the soccer ball, and that could hit you in the head and knock you into the road. You know, it's like, that's ridiculous. And then a little bit later on, as those characters are in the forefront of the shot, there's like a shot looking down the road. You see the road, the sidewalk, our characters are in the foreground, and then another character goes to the background, and all of those things happen. Like the thing falls from the tree, the guy with the leaf blower hits the kid, the soccer ball hits her, she falls into the garbage truck, but it all happens in the background. It is so fucking funny. And it is the perfect kind of scene that you want to put in a Final Destination movie. And since we're talking spoilers, we'll just talk about the ending. Pretty much nobody makes it out of these movies ever. Seems like Kimberly from Part 2 is the only one, because they think that they stopped it. They think that she was resuscitated, but she was not. And this penny that caused the event in the 1960s that was put into an old lady's purse that was dropped again, that rolls to the train track, just moving the train to the side just enough so that it comes off the track, crashing into them, and in the most brilliant, like, hilarious ending ever of all of these movies, pretty much. I'd say maybe only the Part 5 ending is better because it connects to the first movie, but the ending here, you see the train crash and the motherfucking logs come over the top and crush the remaining characters. But yeah, like I said, I had so much fun with this movie. I thought this was way better than I expected it to be. My only gripes are little nitpicks here and there, and the CGI not looking too great. But besides that, I love how it just completely gives you everything you want in a Final Destination movie. I like the idea of the Bloodlines. You know, I like the idea that it takes death so long to catch up that some people have been able to have children. I also really love what they did with Tony Todd's character, finally giving him a definitive origin, explaining his character, explaining where his knowledge comes from, and giving Tony Todd that chance to give his final speech in the movie that is just, you know, as resonant as ever because it's coming from him. So rest in peace to the legend. And this would also imply that his character is now taken out too. So this really could actually be, it probably won't be, but it could be the final Destination movie. But if it makes a lot of money, I'm sure we'll get a Part 7. Anyways, guys, what did you think of the movie? Let me know down below in the comments. Leave your thoughts, ideas, opinions. Did you like it as much as I did? Did you not like it? I have to figure out where this one really ranks for me, but it's pretty high up there. It's not my favorite. Part 2 is always going to be my favorite, but this is pretty high up there for me, so I have to think about it. But yeah, leave your thoughts, opinions, comments down below. Appreciate you guys. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have Patreon channel memberships and all the social media links where you can follow me down below. Other than that, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day, and be safe out there.